Welcome back to another episode of the Rainy Cajun. This one is going to be fun, folks. So I know I say that at almost every one of them, but it seems like they're getting more and more fun. David, good to have you back. And
hey, good to be back.
And this has been amazing. Just the work that you've put together, and you know, we'll talk about that throughout this episode. But today we have a chef that has been in the business, if you want to call it that, for quite some time. She's written several books. She has worked with the likes of the Brennan family, the McElhenny family, Commander's Palace, Chef Paul Prudhomme at K. Paul's. I mean, her pedigree is impeccable. She continues to write books, and she's just about to re-release one of her books that is entitled Who's Your Mama? Are You Catholic? And Can You Make a Roux? So Chef Marcelle Bienvenu is joining us today, and she is from her home. Stick around till the end of this episode because we've got a little special treat from Chef Bienvenu, and I think you'll enjoy it. So, all right, let's get on with the interview. Thank you so much for joining us, Chef. I really appreciate you and just kind of quickly accepting and making this work. I know that, when David told me that you had agreed to come on the show, it was super exciting for him and not to put too fine of a point on it, but he's a little bit of a fanboy for you. So
thank you very much.
I honestly didn't realize how many books that I had by you or you had contributed to until I started looking again. Of course, I've got the two Who's Your Mama? Are You Catholic? Can You Make a Roux? But then also listening to some of the other things, I have the Cajun Creole cookbook that you re-edited in the early 90s. Of course, Cooking Up a Storm. It
was really a great book because that was nominated for a James Beard Award.
Yeah.
And it was such a community effort to get that book done. Judy Walker was an incredible inspiration to get all that done. People that had not lost things would bring us boxes of their clippings to the Times-Picayune office. I mean, it was incredible, the cooperation of the community to do that book.
Yeah, I think my other grandmother, Jeremy, and I, not our common grandmother, but my other grandmother, after she passed, my mom got a box from one of her sisters, and I think there's a bunch of clippings, and I haven't gone back and looked, but I'm pretty sure there's some of your stuff in there. I know there's Leon Sognat's in there too.
Yeah. Well, I got the job after Leon Sognat died.
Okay.
In 1984, it was the World's Fair in New Orleans.
Yeah. Right.
And I was out of a job because I had just closed my restaurant in Lafayette. So I called Ella Brennan. He said, "Well, look, Leon just died. I'm going to call up and tell him that you can take his place." And that's how it happened.
That's got to be like the shortest job interview ever. Just like,
yeah. Ella Brennan would never say I asked him. I told them.
Yeah. I watched her documentary on her life. She seemed like she was quite the character.
She was, yeah.
So your column was called Cooking Creole, correct? Yeah. Was that the name of his column too?
That was the Times-Picayune.
Okay.
Did that. Because I guess in 84, Cajun wasn't that popular in New Orleans. Paul Prudhomme came on the scene, I guess, in the 70s. So they had to have it Creole because it was in New Orleans.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. But I know you've gotten given the name the Queen of Cajun Cooking.
Well, I don't know where that came from.
But so you had actually, I was reading back about your contributions in history. So you had actually started with a Picayune back in the late 60s. Or was it the Dixie magazine that was part of the Picayune?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with the Time Life cookbook of Creole and Cajun cooking?
Remember the series of books, yeah.
Well, we were on deadline, and Vince Rendez, I think, was city editor. He said, "Marcel, there's these people from Time Life. Go get them coffee." So I did, and I said, "What are y'all interested?" He said, "We need a person who knows everything about Cajun and Creole cooking." I said, "I know everything. I was 22 years old. I didn't know anything." But I convinced him. Well, one of the ladies, her father was the dean of men at LSU at the time. So we felt
Okay.
a connection that we were from the same state.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, I'm thinking my oldest daughter's 21. I don't know if she would be that brave to
Confident.
say that. She knows, that
Yeah.
confident.
At
Yeah.
the time,
So that was in the early 70s. So you're doing both of those at the same time with the Dixie and the Time Life?
no, I left Dixie Roto when I was hired by Time Life
Okay.
as a local consultant, and that took about a year or so to finish up, because they had a photographer that came from England to do the photographs. We had to travel all around South Louisiana. And then I took a job at UNO for a while I was finishing that book.
Okay.
And then Ella called me in 74, I guess it was, said, would you come work at Commanders? I mean, I was absolutely floored. And I went, wait. I said, Ella, y'all open every day of the year, Sundays, holidays. I said, at night. I said, I don't think I want to have those hours. Oh, she said, I would never make you do that. She lied. I was off on Monday.
I knew where that story was going before you even started.
But she was such a mentor, and she taught me so much. And she always had this great attitude. Well, all the Brennans do. They have they're so hospitable and so pleasant and so kind. So it was a great learning experience. I was there when they hired Paul Prito. And I went,
Wow.
I don't know. I didn't know that would work. And I told Ella one time, I said, Ella, in South Louisiana, when we make a chicken and sausage gumbo, we cook chicken with bones and skin. I said, I don't know if the little ladies uptown New Orleans will go for that. She said, we're going to take the bones off for them. Oh, I said, of course. Ella had an answer for everything.
And you're saying that, it reminded me of a couple of stories with gumbo that I can remember on my mom's side, we get chicken andouille gumbo and it having the bones in it. And then a couple of times recently, I've made it at the house with the whole chicken. And my daughters weren't real fond of the fact that even though I picked the bones and out of the things, those little chicken rib bones are really difficult to get.
Yeah.
So that was it. If y'all were successful at getting that done, that's a lot of meticulous detail there. So, but that was what, the mid 70s you were saying, that with Paul Prudhomme coming on?
I worked at Commanders from 70. They had just purchased Commanders, 73, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And in 77, she sent me to Brennan's in Houston to be assistant general manager. And I never made friends with Houston. It was exciting, and that was in the 70s, so it was very, very exciting. And so I stayed there till 79. I moved there. I moved in the day Elvis Presley died. I remember that. And I moved back in 79 to open my restaurant in Lafayette.
Okay. So I was actually born in Houston, and my parents moved from Metairie. That's where Jeremy and our both of our parents are from. Our grandparents came from the River Parish, but we were living in Houston. I was born there, then we moved to Dallas, and we came back to Houston. So we got back around the time that you were leaving. But I don't know if I really remember hearing much about Brennan's in Houston. Is it still around, or has it been?
Yeah, it was downtown. It was housed in a junior league building on right near what's I used to call it the little hippie community.
Not Westheimer. No, I'm thinking of. I think I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember the name right now.
It was right where that, but it was on not Main, but one of the main streets in Houston. It burned down one of remember the hurricane after Katrina that went west. It caught fire during the storm, but they rebuilt it into almost exactly the same building. Wow. It was it's a beautiful. Ella's son runs it now.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did that? I guess that's one of the things that I guess we'll let you finish going through the chronology. But one of the things that we're trying to feature is talking about, especially for people who've either grew up and moved away from Louisiana or have the strong influences, just being able to adapt. Because oftentimes you don't realize what you miss until you don't have it. Thinking my parents came to that realization when they moved to Houston, and even though they could get some of the things, my dad told the story that the night that I was born, he went to a place, and it might have been that same little area, and this would have been in '69, and they had a sign advertising barbecued shrimp. And he had in his mind barbecued shrimp from Pascal Manali's. And it turned out to be something totally different with maybe barbecue sauce on it. Oh. So he was sorely disappointed then.
Well, at least it wasn't foreboding for you, right?
Well, I think it was probably in the early 80s when Houston really exploded. But then what happened too is when I had the restaurant, we were doing very, very well. But that was when the oil business went bust. And I mean, it really... My CPA called. He said, "Did we close?" And no one told me because sales closed like in a week. It was like nobody came. So it really it was really incredible. Yeah, in '84.
Well, and I think that's basically what ended up happening with him. He was working for Schlumberger Oil Company in Houston, and I think basically his they obviously dried up with some of the things that were going on there. And so he ended up looking for a job, but initially in New York. But he had actually put in.
I'm glad y'all came down this way.
he put in an application in Mobile, Alabama, and actually that job came open 6 months later. So we've been here since 1986. So, but yes, that was that. Yeah, so that had a big ripple effect for everybody in the '80s with that, especially in the Houston Gulf Coast area.
Well, I came back in '84 after I closed the restaurant. Was when I started writing into Pekin. Yeah, I kind of got around, huh?
Well, what I was going to say is that, I mean, you've got a lot of experience. I mean, from the Louisiana cooking standpoint, I mean, you're the perfect person to write that column.
When I was teaching at Nichols, all the students that were from North Louisiana, that we make fun of them all the time. I said, okay, we're going to have a class of somebody from North Louisiana and somebody from South. You need to cook a roux or a gumbo. And they would laugh, oh, that's not how it's done, or da-da-da. So, my North Louisiana students were just really precious about it. Well, I guess we don't belong to the state because we don't make our gumbos like that. So, Louisiana has little pockets of, when I went to work at Oak Alley, we were making up the menu for the week. And they said on Friday, one of the cooks said, we always have fried catfish and white beans. And I went, white beans with catfish? So what do you have it with us? Potato salad. And they even put white beans on their jambalaya. I went, what is going on? But I researched, and evidently during the Depression and maybe World War II, what's in Gonzales? Blue runner beans. Mm-hmm. So they used to give a lot of the beans to the community. So that's why they bean everything. And I think is it St. John the Baptist? I went one time to do a presentation, and they had red bean gumbo. And I went, wait.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
Uncle Larry Roussel, who's got the line of Cajun gumbo mixes. So Uncle Larry, I talked to him, and he was telling me that's his same theory on how you got red bean gumbo to begin with. Is that with the Blue Runner folks out there, that he says he couldn't really find it exactly. It was either him or Spuddy Fauché, but one of the two had the theory is that it came from that area because of the Blue Runner beans, and that got invented during the Festival of the Bonfires or something like that.
Right. So this, like I said, these little pockets. When I was teaching at Nichols, I used to ask my freshman group. I said, when you were little, what did your mama fix you to make you happy? And if they answered weenie spaghetti, I knew they were from down the bayou.
Yeah.
Because that's a big favorite down in Lafourche Parish, Terrebonne, Lafourche Parish. And, there's even little people that said, well, I'm from wherever, and I don't make it like they make it. So it's all what you grew up with. Who makes the best gumbo? Grandma or somebody in your family, because that's what you got used to.
Right.
So weenie spaghetti. Okay. Well, I had to tell you, we had a student from Maryland. She was precious. So right at the beginning of school, she came and said, Chef, is there a town called Down the Bayou? I said, everybody you asked, they go, I'm from Down the Bayou. She said, where is it? I said, Down the
Bayou. I guess that was one of the things that which And I guess you've had a lot of challenge in the sense, because when you look at popular media describing Cajun and Creole cooking, they kind of almost want to put it in one specific point in the state. And there's one way to make gumbo, or there's one way to make jambalaya. But unless you really study it and realize that, just like you described there, that really every family makes it a little different, and every community makes it a little different. And doesn't mean that one's better than the other.
Yeah, right. There's no rules. If it makes you happy and it tastes good, that's all. Now, there's some things I go, oh no, but yeah, that's their gumbo or whatever. So it's there.
Right. Well, that's one of the things that Jeremy and I have encountered a lot with the Facebook. Is wonderful from the standpoint of seeing people call other people out because they don't agree with how they make their gumbos and the ingredients they put in there. And so I've had to be, initially I tried to educate the people by describing stuff, but I think no matter how much you want to educate them, I think a lot of times they have it set in their ways, and they're going to argue with you.
Right. But, we have a 24-hour love affair with food. So, we worried about what we're going to eat tonight. We talked about what we had yesterday. So that's good.
Yeah, my wife doesn't really like when I ask her first thing in the morning what we're eating for dinner tonight.
Or you're in the middle of a meal and then you're already thinking about what the next one's going to be, right?
Yeah, you have to. Absolutely.
So that brings us probably around to the early 90s then, or it was late 80s when you started your first the first copy of the
in 1990 I went to work for Emeril. He had just left Commanders and had opened the original Emeril's, but he wanted me to work. He had done one cookbook called New Orleans Cooking, and he wasn't happy with it, so he said, would you come and help me write a book? So that's the one I did with him. The first one was Louisiana Real and Rustic. And he was only 25 years old when he came to Commanders.
Wow.
And, I told Ed, I said, Ella, he's from up north. You think he ever saw a Roux? Because he was so young, but he was delightful. And he was very shy. He would always talk with his head down. And he and my husband got to be big friends. So he'd come to St. Martinville a lot. So when we started working on the Real and Rustic book, he really tried to stick to the original way that we cooked in South Louisiana. He was a little different than Paul. Paul was an extremely incredible creative person. But, and one of his favorite dishes I had was, he had taken eggplant or morocho, hollowed it out, deep fried it, then filled it with fried oysters and fried shrimp with the béarnaise sauce with something in it. I never had that at my mama's house. I mean, we just had rice and gravy. He was great at creating.
I guess it was his first cookbook that came out, which I bought it several years after it came out, but I thought it was well done because it had a lot of pictures to illustrate and the techniques. And I've heard Frank Brightson talk about that when he had to write that cookbook, that he didn't have a lot of the things written down in a form that everybody could use. So they had to go through a lot of meticulous work to get it in that format.
I did the Real and Rustic, Creole Christmas, Emeril's Creole Christmas, Every Day's a Party. And we did, I didn't do all the work on that. Primetime Emeril was one that was based on his show, Emeril Live. And that was such a overwhelming. As I said, he was very shy. But when they turned that camera on, he was spot on.
Yeah.
And he enjoyed doing that show. And it was really fun to see it. Yeah. I stayed on to do books, and I also helped with his TV show.
Different format, but Emeril kind of brought it to where it's, I guess, a lot more interaction with the crowds and the. And I don't know if there was anybody else really before him that had done that. I mean, even Julia Child's show is kind of it's more of an instructional, like being in a class as opposed to having a live studio audience.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. When they said live, I went, oh no, and it worked.
I do know that from a standpoint, because I've had an opportunity to do a few videos with Chef Folse, and then even on Bayou Wild Television with Don Dubuque and his group. I mean, when you're trying to talk and cook and pay attention to everything, that's a real difficult task.
Yeah.
And people who've never tried it before, they need, if you want to criticize somebody on their style or their delivery, you need to try it, because it is not an easy thing to do.
It is true multitasking. True multitasking.
Oh, yeah.
Man.
And it was a lot of fun. I've worked on a book with Miss Eula, who was the cook at McElhenny for years.
Okay.
And bless her heart, she passed away not too long ago, and I miss her. But she had never used a measuring cup. The only thing she used as a measuring cup was a maraschino cherry jar.
The jar.
Which was a little less than a cup.
Yeah.
And when she did this with her Tabasco, it was a teaspoon. So, and she was precious. When we started testing, Mr. McElhenny said, Marcelle, if y'all need any pots and pans, y'all go to the Culinary in Lafayette and get what y'all need. And I went, okay.
Yeah.
She said, Marcelle, she said, I can't cook in pots I don't know. I went, does that mean we can't go buy new pots? She said, no, we're cooking in my pots. And when we went to New York to release the book, I had to ship her pots up to New York.
Wow. We had Shane Bernard on last episode, and that's what we were talking about.
Knowledgeable about stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was telling him, was his book on the Cajuns, and then your book with the brassos on the stir the pot.
Right.
I got those at the same time, and kind of for me, I grew up, and Jeremy and I've talked about it before. We grew up in New Orleans, Metairie, Houston, in the urban or suburban areas.
Yeah.
And what we knew of as Louisiana food was, or either it was the common foods that everybody was eating across America, or there was a few things that would stand out. And it wasn't until I've been doing genealogy since I was a teenager in the 80s. And then I started questioning it. Hey, are we Cajun? Are we Creole? And then as I started asking even some of the folks I met up the river in the Vacherie area, they gave me the same sort of answer. So when I read his book and then read your book back to back, it was kind of like, oh yeah, we are in that big umbrella of Acadiana, and we do share a lot of similarities in common customs and food ways. We do it a little different, but we've had similar meals, and so I realized that that we are Cajun Creole, and so that, like I said, I'd really enjoyed that book and also learning of the influence that New Orleans, and I guess it was the can't remember one of the other areas that influenced, like the river parishes, but it just kind of a culmination of areas to come together.
And I think like for the longest time, all the French bread in New Orleans was baked by Germans. Right. And the Vietnamese are taking over now. They've become the city bakers. They're fantastic. And the French Quarter, the architecture is really Spanish. So the French Quarter is Spanish. Right. So you have to be aware of what you're doing with that. But I think like the Germans, the Italians, everybody kind of put their finger in the pot. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of stuff that was grown that was just a combination of a lot of people's ethnic background that really has now incorporated into what we call Acadian Creole these days. Mm-hmm. Because I think that, and I really think that a lot of the charcuterie, like the sausages and stuff, the boudin, I think that was really more German than anything. But there's probably some little freshman sitting around and went, oh, it's a boudin. Yeah. So and the French it was such a big influence. A lot of the Germans spoke French around here anyway. Yeah. So, it was just overwhelming what everybody contributed.
Right. I mean, I think there were 4 waves of Germans that arrived in Louisiana, and ours were our Wagaspach ancestors and got Hemels and all them. I mean, they came in some of the first waves, but that's the story I've heard time and time again, is that even though they married the French culture really took over, although the German. Yeah,
it was so overwhelming because they were here, one of the first ones. And in St. Martinville, before the Acadians came in the 1750s, we were a French Indian trading post.
Okay.
So we had some things that the Indians taught us how to eat crawfish.
Mm-hmm.
Eat what you can find in the swamp, in the fields, whatever. So I'm sure when they got here, they went, "Oh, we left that cold place, and now we're here. It's hot. There's mosquitoes. There's no fish like we know. They had lobsters. We had crawfish. So
right.
It's fun to see how they had to adapt to all that."
So one of the groups in Mobile that I got asked to join and it's actually a lot of Louisiana expats. But this guy has a marching, since we have Mardi Gras here too. It's called the Royal Order of Gumbo is what he called it. And he asked me after seeing some of the stuff I've done with Meliton and some other discussions I've had with people. He asked if I'd be the official historian for the group, and so it's just a bunch of folks. I think he said the mean or the average age of the group is like 70, but but they'll get together like once or twice a year to do fundraisers so that they'll do their parade during Mardi Gras. But that's one of the things when he was asking me to give a talk on the history of gumbo, and I started learning more about Mobile's history, which at the same time started realizing that the French had come through Mobile before they came through to New Orleans. And that's when I started claiming the fact that I'll say that we're the original the first capital of colonial French. Louisiana is Mobile. So I'll claim that I'm still living in Louisiana somewhat, at least in my mind. But so the one of the reasons, like I said, we wanted to talk to you because you have the re-release. Is this the fourth or third re-release of your book?
The first one was in '89 or right at the end of '89, and the people that had published it was published locally in Lafayette. They went out of business or they left the city. And then when the net took over the advertiser, they did another publishing, but it was a different color. We've had 4 different. All the recipes are the same, but the format was all different. And so this one is really exciting that it's all in color. I mean, it's a book. I got one last night. It's not final, but it's a pretty book.
I saw the cover this morning. It's bright. It's a nice bright pink.
Well, when they said pink, I went, pink? But I guess they know what they're doing. They put a stack of books with just the spine. Right. And everybody went for pink.
Yeah.
So I was okay. Let's go for pink.
Marketing 101 right there.
This is the one I've got. Let's see if I can get it in there.
Yeah. Well, that one will stay. This one will stay in publication. This one was published by Acadian House Publishers in Lafayette, Trent Andrews. Okay. He rescued it in the late 2006, maybe, because it was out of print. So he republished it, and it'll still be published in that format.
Okay. So, but this will be just kind of an updated version if you want that version as well. Because I saw what you were talking about, the first publication I found on the Louisiana Digital, I think it's Louisiana Digital Media, when you were on Taste of Louisiana with Chef Folse, and you brought him a copy of the book, and it was a spiral bound one.
Yeah, there was one spiral bound.
Yeah, but but it's really interesting because it's divided up both books. So let me ask that question. This is part 1 is what I've got, and then I also have part 2. Is the new book going to be a combination of both of the books?
The new book has a lot of the old pictures, the black and white pictures that are in that book you just showed. We didn't take anything from number 2. We kept with the older. And then, of course, they did all these color photos. Okay. It's a pretty book, yeah.
I got to know this, the title. A lot of us, born and raised in the South, Roman Catholics, went to Jesuit high school in New Orleans, and I went to... so where did this come from?
It was really kind of, we were going to call it the Marcelle Bienvenu Family Cookbook. Now, that's boring. My husband and I had gone to a play at USL, and it was called A Band Inside My Head. And it was about this young man who leaves Louisiana to go find his fame and fortune, and he comes back with a fiance. So the mother and the great aunts and
Right.
sang a little ditty. Who's your mama? Or you Catholic? Can you make a roux? And it kept going in my head, bang inside my head. And my husband said, "Oh, let's just name it that." I went, "Well, that's kind of long, long title."
Yeah.
But a New York Times called it probably one of the best names of cookbooks ever. So it caught on.
Okay.
I was going to say, I think the first time I remembered seeing it and hearing about it was actually at our common grandmother's house. I don't know if you remember it, Jeremy. Our grandmother would, we'd go visit, and she had a coffee table, and either one of our aunts or our uncles were usually giving her these nice little books, either on Louisiana cooking or Louisiana history. Yeah. So I remembered that title and thumbing through it, but I didn't really get into it till I bought it. I think it was 2008 when I got my copy. But I recently tried some of the recipes again with my kids and wife. That it's kind of like it's like you got a photo album, you got a cookbook, and you got a family history all rolled up into one.
And when we were talking about this the other day, and I said, my publisher said, she said, I'm not from here. She's not from here. She's from Memphis. But she said, I had so much fun reading it when we were putting it into this new book format. She said, there's things in there that we did. She said, we used to have popcorn balls at Halloween. Yeah. And she said, it really is amazing that food, you think about food and you think about things that happen. It's all relative. But when I was proofing it again this time, I guess I had not read the whole thing. And I went, I wrote that? I said, when was that? And of course, it was 50 years ago, So it's a recollection of, and a lot of people have really said it reminds them of their childhood. Yeah. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. Yeah. I was going to say, I think, the challenge for a lot of folks, when I say challenge, I mean, everybody, if you have a similar background, could take the time and create something like that. I mean, because if you're lucky enough to have your grandparents or your parents' recipes and the photographs and the stories, I mean, it would take time. And I guess maybe it helped that you were doing some of the your column at the same time, that some of these recollections probably helped you pull that together. But I mean, those are kind of those keepsakes that are passing on to generations that people would really enjoy.
And, it saddens me because, and times change. We're always evolving. I remember one of my students, I saw him at Rouse's getting a box of jambalaya. And I went, no. Put the box, put it back. And he said, yeah, but chef, it'll cook in a minute. I said, that's what's wrong. I want to get everything done in a minute. I mean, many Sunday afternoon, we were at my mother's house and, gossiping and talking while we chopped and we stirred and we visited. Sure. And they don't have that. I said, y'all got to sit down and talk to your family.
Yep.
Right.
And find stories. They said, what do they get? I said, we always had a story that one of my mother had just gotten herself a riding lawnmower. She was so excited. And one of the kids, about 10, he drove it right into the pool. Into the deep end of the pool. And I went, oh, no. And,
wow.
Everybody's screaming and yelling. My daddy could drop a bomb on his head. He wouldn't budge. He said, oh, no worry. We're going to call the sheriff's department. They're going to come get it out. And I went, okay. There's all these little family stories that nobody knows. And if you don't pass it on, it's lost.
Right. And I guess that's kind of what my interest in finding, like I said, finding stuff that you've done and Chef Folse and others is kind of trying to connect back to what, Jeremy and our grandparents and great grandparents would have experienced. Because when I started talking to people in the river parishes, I'd always hear about, like, my mom would talk about making butter beans and shrimp, or like you talk about white beans and the river shrimp, and then making bar dressing and all these different things that I'd never experienced. And then I start researching them, and I'll try to make them and discover that I either have had something that was similar that they made, or just it's a new taste for me, but I really enjoy it. So now I wanted to carry it on.
Well, what I always tell my students, I said, don't ask your mother or grandmother, whoever, for a recipe. Go in the kitchen and watch them cook. Because sometimes, even though they don't mean to, they've forgotten a step or an ingredient. So I said, just follow them around the kitchen and you make the notes, and then you can see what they do. like, we'll cook it till it's done. Okay. When
Yeah.
it's done. And, I always said, when you're writing a recipe, try to give a visual and a time. Cook until the strip turn pink, about 10 minutes, so that people have a visual.
Right.
Because a lot of these cookbooks, some of them I go, I'm never going to get. Well, anything that says day 1, day 2, I don't touch that one.
Yeah.
I don't anything that takes 3 days to fix.
Well, and to your point, that's one of the things I was curious about, since you've contributed to so many cookbooks and had your own, is the procedure of creating the recipe, because you have to, just like you described there, the fact that, I think you've read many cookbooks where you see something and it seems like steps are missing, and I think it depends upon the skill level of whoever wrote the cookbook. They may it may be intuitive. So for you to be able to step back and say, all right, well, what is the intermediate or early beginner cook need to, you want to make sure all those steps. So I did in the first book, I did your stuffed melliton, but instead of the shrimp, I did it with the ham, the option you gave with the ham and the cheese. And it turned out very well. I would say difficulty level was very easy to me. It wasn't, I'm used to boiling the melliton, scooping them out. Of course, I had some pre-chopped ham, but it didn't take and it took a little longer than an hour, only because of the fact I was taking pictures along the way, because I want to put it together in a little video afterwards. So my wife and daughters have had plenty of exposure to melliton food recipes since I've been growing them for the last 13 years. And she actually told me she kind of preferred it with the ham versus the one I do it with the seafood. So right away, everybody got enjoyed that. And then I also did your the boulettes, and it was a cream potatoes. And my older daughter told me, she goes, we need to add this potato recipe to our routine of potato dishes. So
well, good. Well, when we were redoing this, we had to cook a lot of the stuff for the pictures. And we had 2 or 3 of the Nichols students and a couple of friends of mine. And we were so pleased that everything worked, except we had 2 kind of boo-boos. But I said, no one ever questioned it. The recipe for the stuffed leg of lamb had 10 pounds of spinach. And you only need 2. So, I went, whoa. And I think there was a dessert that, I think for the pecan pie, it doesn't tell you how long to bake it. It's just bake at 350 degrees. Okay. But we were able to fix it. So.
And nobody's reached out to you in all that time?
So at least we tried them all and they worked, except for a couple of them.
Well, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, because you get, like I said, you got a good diversity of some of the dishes that I've seen. Because I think you've got a handful of, or more than a handful of gumbo recipes, and then the like I said, the far dressing, that stood out to me.
Well, that I learned when I was at O'Galley. I never heard that. Yeah. Yeah,
that's when people were telling me about that too, and how it was common to serve that at the weddings on sandwiches. I made it a couple of times, and I really like it. But it reminded me of what I've had as on either grandmother's side, when they would do like an oyster dressing at Christmas time, which was mostly kind of pork based. Anyway, I still had those flavors, but I wouldn't have thought about it reading the titles or hearing the names, but until you taste them and seeing, okay, those are pretty much the same dish for the most part, just a few different ingredients. Trying to think of the other question I had.
Well, for that recipe, everybody kind of questions the sweet potato in it. But that was the deal. That was why it was so different. The river parrot. Yeah.
Because I guess it adds that starchiness to it, in addition to I think some bread I've seen in some. And I think the first one I made was Folse's, and he's right. He talked about the sweet potatoes basically kind of dissolve. You don't even see them in there.
Right.
And it adds the sweetness and the substance.
Yeah.
But you had a section too on another recipe that caught my attention, was for the boucherie. And you were talking about the backbone stew. And so I've tried to make something similar. Of course, I guess backbone is, I guess you could do it with almost like a pork chop part or.
Well, you can, you have to have some fat. So
Okay.
you don't want anything that is all trimmed of all fat. Somebody said, oh, can I use a pork loin? I went, no, there's not enough fat in it. And of course,
Okay.
the backbone, when they clean it to use the meat for something else, it
Mhm.
had a lot of gluten and it was gelatinous.
Yeah.
And like bones because it has bones. So it was really
Mhm.
rich.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
you'd have to have something with a little fat in it.
I've seen like so now in Mobile, the benefit I have when we moved here, we didn't have a lot of Louisiana sources. We'd go to visit Metairie, and we'd go to Dornax and Metairie, and we'd load up on all the various supplies, our coffees, our breads, our alcohols, and we'd take them back to Mobile. And and now for the last, I don't know, almost 10 years, we've had a Rouse's, and I've got a Rouse's less than a mile from my house here
Everywhere.
in Mobile.
Yeah.
So I can find a lot of the ingredients. So I've seen like they had pork neck bones for sale.
Yeah,
And,
that's good. That's good.
And I've reached out to Curtis and I asked him. I said, "Can I make a backbone stew with the neck bones?" He goes, "Oh yeah, man, that'll make a great backbone stew." But once again, that's another one of those dishes that I had to try to pick through before the family ate it, because they didn't really want all that challenge of eating like that. Oh, but I guess one of the other things that in the book, so in the second book, I noticed there's let me get it in there.
Yeah.
There's a picture of our current governor in Louisiana.
Yeah.
As a young man, I guess back in 1980. So you got a connection there that you want to share?
He's my nephew. My sister passed away a few years ago. Jeff is my nephew. And I never thought he would be in politics. But when I look back now, he was friends with everybody. He stopped and talked to this and talked. And I said, Jeff, do you know those people? No. So he's a people person, but very much like my father. My father, we were in the newspaper business. My grandfather founded Chess News in 1886. And my dad was a big raconteur, and my brother took over, and he just passed away. And right before my brother died, we were talking about different styles in the family. Daddy could he had a column called Rena, the Kids, and I. You had no secrets in the parish because he would tell everybody what we did, And Henry Clay was more of a detail. He wrote about the school board and the parish. Yeah. So, in fact, I remember telling a story. He said, Marcelle, that's not how it happened. I said, that's how it happened to me. I said, I'm of the school that never let the truth get in the way of a good story. He was just on facts. But, he has a great personality. He has a wonderful child. And he just keeps going. So we'll see what happens.
Well, I don't know if that'd be something I'd want to tackle, but, I wish him all the luck. Are you going to be doing book signings, you think, with this?
Yeah, and ironically, we found out, my publisher, she said, instead of going to just bookstores, a lot of book sales are at festivals, like at the Jazz Fest or the French Quarter Festival, or even any of the other. So, I'll be going to the bookstores, but, we'll be elsewhere as well.
With books like yours and of course, everything that you've done and what Emeril's done and Chef Foles, to kind of broaden that message to more and more people is I think instrumental in helping people understand what is true Cajun cooking, Creole cooking. And it doesn't involve just making something hot with black pepper and cayenne. There's a lot more that goes into it. But there is this you got to blame companies that like I'll call them out. I don't care. Cisco for, they'll sell you a big bottle of Cajun seasoning and you know what it is, but you're just like, so people will put it on popcorn. They'll put it on anything. Right. And then they have a Cajun something. And that part is if you look online, you'll see people's comments that they refuse, if they're from Louisiana, they refuse to eat anything that's branded Cajun, Creole, anything west of the Mississippi. They just won't do it. And you know, to their credit, most of the time that unless you're dealing with an expat who lives in that area, it's really hard to find good quality food. So it's important that people get educated about what is the actual cooking.
My little student that had the box of jambalaya mix.
Yeah.
It was a big display. They even had a jambalaya mix with cheese in it. And I went, no.
God.
Put that back.
God. You know, the accessibility to ingredients is definitely there. It's unlike it's ever been in the past. I think it's just and one of the reasons why we started this podcast was to educate people, to not, you know, to hopefully remove a lot of those preconceived notions about what is this. Hell, I didn't know until I met. I've known David my entire life, but until David and I have grown up on basically opposite ends of the country, and he, you know, I didn't know that I had Cajun blood in the family, and this is. I found this out after I'd already created the podcast called the Rainy Cajun, and so it was like, oh, okay, well, good, then that all matches up. So it squares. The thing that I miss up here that I'd love even still back home is the sense of family and the food being a core component of defining the family and the family events and the get-togethers.
Thankfully, there's a lot of festivals that are trying to bring back some of those cooking ways, and I hope that continues. You know, like the Gumbo Festival in Liberia. I was a judge for the first one. There were 5 entries, and now there's hundreds. You know, so I'm sure everybody goes for the fun of it, but people are still cooking. I mean, so that makes me happy.
Yeah,
to see
out of all of the recipes you've done, out of all the dishes that you've fabricated, concocted in your time as a chef, what dish can you point to and go, I really enjoyed that one, and I really enjoyed making that over and over again?
A bouillabaisse.
Really?
Yes. And,
okay.
You know, I had learned what I was at the time speaking of. That's what I really started getting interested in, why we eat what we eat here in South Louisiana. I mean, I'd gone to Washington, D.C. in the summer of '64, and I almost came back. I called my mother. I said, Mama, they don't have any gumbo here. She said, well, just take it easy. Yeah. But I went, you know, why are we the only ones that eat this stuff? And, you know, but my daddy was a big Boy Scout leader for years. So he cooked a lot of stuff outdoors over a wood fire.
Right.
And I was just fascinated. I said, how do you go from high to low on a wood fire? You know, you have to move the pot or whatever.
Right.
But on Sunday afternoon, sometimes they would call their friends and they'd say, y'all come over, we're going to play bourrée, and we're going to put a bouillabaisse on. And our version is far different from the one that's in Marseille, but it's what bouillabaisse says is boil, then stop. And you make layers of the vegetable, the Holy Trinity, whatever you want, layers of fish, layers, you know, make layers.
Right.
And you have to have a pot with sides. And when you put the lid on it, you cannot look at it for 1 hour. And everybody goes, oh, yeah. And it makes the most beautiful broth. And it smells. In fact, we used to put a sign on the pot, do not open. Because I said, if you peek, it's over. So that is one of my favorites. A friend that I talk with, and he's from Michigan, he said, that is the most wonderful, wonderful dish from this area I've ever had. And every time we go somewhere, he says, we're going to make bouillabaisse again. I said, okay, whatever. So, you know, it's a good, you know, it's no big deal. It's easy to do, and it always comes out.
Well, Chef, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And we hopefully down the road, you know, we'll get you back on, you know, and maybe talk about the experience of the re-release of the book if you're open to it. I'm sure we'll have plenty more questions at that point too. Yep.
Sounds good. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Chef.
Thanks, Chef.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That was pretty fun.
Yeah.
It's clear that she has just a wealth of knowledge and experience that a lot of the people that we've talked to also have, but hers, you know, it speaks directly to where we're from, where our families are from, and without even hearing her voice, seeing all the pictures and everything that you had sent me and everything, that was the voice when she came on. I was like, that's exactly what I imagined. I mean, just and I mean that with the most respect that anyone can give to anybody else.
I mean, if you were a student and you had an opportunity to take a course from her, I mean, she covers so many things. And I think more and more of that program, if I knew of anybody who wanted to go into that culinary arts, I would, of course, I hadn't studied any place else, but I just think about the people that have built their foundations, the things that she has from writing, from presenting recipes, from the history, the demonstrations, and we talk about John Folse with all his stuff, running big operations and big events and catering, and then there's so many others that they have that we probably don't even really know about. And I mean, to imagine just to be able to go to take a course from her, several days a week for several weeks. I mean, that's got to be a wealth of information.
Her style, like we were saying during the interview, was, obviously cooking and talking at the same time and demonstrating and imparting knowledge with the people, the audience. That is a challenge. But when you're in it and you're in a live show, like she was talking about with Emeril, that takes a really special kind of person, because that is teaching and demonstrating and engaging all at one time. And that's something that is a big challenge for so many people. And you think about all of the chefs that exist in the world, there's only a select few that can do what she does.
But I think that's the key, like you were saying, is that a lot of people, young kids, whatever, when they go into culinary school, at least what I've heard is a good percentage of them want to be a celebrity chef or want to be out there doing all that stuff. And, when you see real talent and realize that they make it look easy. Now, granted, they've got a good team and a staff helping them prep everything. I mean, because, if Emeril has Chef Marcelle Bienvenu helping him prep, and I mean, that's a pretty strong team there.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the point being is that even though you can have all that support around it, you still have to be able to pull that off. And not everybody can be that engaging or be that interesting once they got to have a general love for the subject matter, which she does. Right. Which John does, and which I'm assuming Emeril does too. Those are things that, you think about one thing, you only see one little bit of it, and it looks so easy. But then, like I said, I did that, whatever it was, a 5-10 minute thing with Don Dubuque and them for the cooking a couple of recipes. Yeah, I had to think ahead of time, because I don't have a staff. I'm take what ingredients I need, portion them out, and then talking to Don while watching something fry and ignoring the camera to a certain extent, other than being able to know which direction to look. So the people that pull it off and make it look easy, my hat's off to them, And,
well,
never underestimate when you see that.
Yeah, definitely. And the knowledge, again, the knowledge factor is key. And of course, I didn't tap this, too much. I didn't have the like and subscribe thing, flashing while Chef was on, but obviously I have one of those, and I don't even know why it didn't show here. There we go. I thought
it was started at the beginning, but there you go.
Yeah. So, please, if you enjoyed the content today, like and subscribe, because we've got more coming, and that really helps us secure new interviews with more and more people that are involved in the information that we're all interested in. So this is one, and hopefully many other videos that we'll get a chance to do, interview more people. I'm thoroughly enjoying seeing this, just how far this podcast has come in just a year's time, and all grown organically. And a lot of it is thanks to everybody out there that's been watching us. So, it is, we're not flashy. We're just two guys that are really interested in our heritage and love sharing it with the general public and people who are also interested in it. So thank you so much for being so supportive of us, and we'll see you on the next show. All right, David, take care of
See you
yourself.
next time.
Bye.
All right, you too.